Hello everyone and welcome back to another video from the Mathnasium. Today we're going to be talking about learning computer-aided design from a distance. We're going to be using a new program for the school, a new program for Mr. Slagle, and hopefully a new program for you guys. The end goal for this unit is for you to be able to design something that we can print from our 3D printer. In the past, we've done a chessboard, and you can see all these pieces designed by students as they fall onto my keyboard. You can see all these pieces that have been designed by students, and they're really amazing pieces that have been created. But it's not like drawing on paper. It's a little different. When you're drawing something on paper, you kind of lose a little bit of information because you're taking something three-dimensional and you're putting it in a two-dimensional space called a plane. Like that piece of paper is a plane, right? So when you're drawing with CAD, computer-aided design, you're taking and you're creating something that is three-dimensional inside of the computer, and the way that we draw that's what we're going to start to learn. So we're going to start to practice thinking in three dimensions. Now it's being projected to us on a screen that's two-dimensional, but we can manipulate the way that we view our object and really turn it into a reality. So you can think of a design, you can draw it on the computer, and you can plug it in and create it with lots of other tools. Not just a 3D printer, but there's a whole host of tools that you could potentially use. We only have a 3D printer, but we could be getting something new. Who knows? Okay, so let's take a look at what we got going on. It will be helpful for this unit for you to have a mouse. So if you can wrangle up one of those, it's not required, but definitely helpful and encouraged. Okay, so let's take a look in Google Classroom here. We just sent this baby out. The first thing you have to do for your assignment is create an Onshape account. Now this can be very hard for some of you, so I'm going to try and show you what to do. I've included the link to join. Watch the video that I'm recording or attend the lesson. You're going to draw your initials in Onshape and submit a screenshot in Google Classroom. I'd like it to be a screenshot and not shared so that I can highlight and comment certain features. Okay, so let's go ahead and click the link for creating an account in Onshape. You're going to put your first name, last name, your student email address. You're going to drop down and make sure you select student, K through 12, and let me just at Gmail. I agree. Okay, and then we're going to create an EDU account. So it takes us to the next screen, and it asks you for this information. So you're going to need to take your school name, North Pole, the web address of your school. I have copied that for you right here, so you can go to that and copy the web address over. The city, state, country, right, and you're going to check these boxes. Select this and press create account. You should have a confirmation email, and you should be able to log in to your account as soon as you can. Okay, so let's should be right after basically you get that confirmation email. Okay, so once you get logged in, if you don't get logged in, make sure you contact me so I can come and meet with me, set up a time for me to meet so we can figure out what's going on. Once you do get logged in, you're going to see this. So this is new for me, so we're going to be learning this together. And basically what I want you to do today is I'm going to go over the basic features of how to draw an Onshape, and we're going to revisit a lot of this stuff in the videos. So what you're going to do is you're going to press create document. Okay, so create document is going to be the first thing that you're going to do. I want you to title this document the name of the lesson. So do 3-1, put your name. I'm going to put Andrew Slagle, and then we'll say Onshape introduction. Okay, and press OK, and it's going to create a drawing that will appear at our home page here, and we are going to draw our initials. But first I'm going to go over the basic features of this program. So remember I said we're in three-dimensional space, and we really want to be able to draw with individual lines and curves and create a thickness later. We're going to worry about three-dimensional stuff for now, but for two-dimensional drawing, which is what we're going to be doing today, you just have to pick a plane to draw on. Imagine like 3 sheets of paper that extend forever in these directions, right? You have one like this, one like this, one like that, and it can be made apparent when I right-click. If I right-click here, and you can kind of, on your mouse, you can click and drag and see all those 3 planes intersecting, just like in math class. Here is our origin where all 3 planes cross. It's pretty apparent when you look down like so, and like this, you can see them all crossing. Over here on the right is our view cube. You can also manipulate the view. By clicking on the view cube, you can click on edges, you can click on sides and get different views going. Notice we haven't even started drawing. There's a whole host of tools that are available here. We're not going to touch any of those today. What I want you to do is I want you to pick a plane on which we're going to create a sketch, which is just a drawing. And you can draw on multiple planes at once in this program. Well, not at the same time, but you can have separate drawings stored on different planes simultaneously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the sketch button. I'm going to create a sketch in it says select a plane. I usually just default to the top plane, but it really depends on what we're drawing. We'll get into more strategy for that later. So I create a sketch in the top plane. You can see the window for my sketch here. I like drawing looking directly down at my paper, so I'm gonna select the top view from my view cube, and then I'm actually gonna go over here and I'm gonna hide these other planes. Maybe not the top one. Let's hide these ones, and yeah, let's hide the top one too. So you can hide using the visibility tools over here. Okay, and then you'll see a whole different set of tools up here now that we are inside our sketch. If I press the little check mark, it takes me out of my sketch and takes me back to 3D space, back to where I was before, okay? So we want to be in our sketch so that we can edit, and it'll show that kind of window where we can draw. And I think you can draw outside the window. It just kind of shows how it's oriented in the program. So I want to show you a couple things today, just some kind of real basics. I want you to grab the line tool. You'll notice when you hover over all these tools, there will be a little hotkey. So to make working in this program really smooth, you can grab the point or whatever you want. The line tool's hotkey is L. So when I'm drawing, I'm going to press L, and you will see that a little crosshair pops up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to draw a rectangle, but we're going to draw it in Onshape style, or rather CAD style. That, you're probably saying, Mr. Slagle, that is not a rectangle. And you would be correct. It is a quadrilateral, or a quadrangle if you're talking about Common Core Standards vocabulary. Here's our quadrilateral, or quadrangle that we're dealing with. And it's not a rectangle, but I want to make it a rectangle. And you're probably saying, Slagle, why didn't you just draw a rectangle? Why'd you have to make this more complicated? Well, we can take the lines that we've drawn and we can force them to be a rectangle. So right now, these lines are kind of like free floating in space. The only real restriction that's present, it says that this line is 2.539. 2.539 watts. Go to your document menu, workspace units. Looks like we're in inches, okay? But you can change that later if you want. I'm gonna go back into my sketch. So what we're gonna do is we are going to take these 4 lines, we're gonna turn them into a rectangle using something called constraints. I'm gonna go over some really basic constraints today, and the most important one, which is the dimension constraint, or the dimension tool. All right, so how this works is we know that there's different ways that rectangles are defined. I'm going to define them by what's going on in here. I know that this is not a rectangle because rectangles have to meet up at right angles in all the corners. So what we can do is we can grab this, so you can hover over these and they say what they do. We have a coincident constraint, concentric, we've got the perpendicular, vertical, we can force things to be horizontal, vertical, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to select the perpendicular constraint. I'm going to click on this line and this line. So what it did is it forced this line to be perpendicular to that line. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to force this line to be perpendicular to that line. So I guess we didn't have a constraint on that line. Whatever, it just showed the measurement. Okay, and then we're getting closer to a rectangle. The last thing is I want to force this line to be perpendicular with that line. So now, by default, since this is a right angle, this is a right angle, and this is a right angle, the last one has to be a right angle. And when you select that, it's like, okay, great. That's just fine. Okay. So we have just forced this rectangle to be, or we forced this quadrilateral to be a rectangle. Now, if you come over here and you select Show Constraints, whoops, it shows that, hey, these lines are perpendicular. And it says these lines have to be, I think that's the coincident constraint there. Okay, that means they cross. These lines have to touch at that point. So there's coincident constraints on the points, and there are perpendicular constraints. Okay, cool. The other thing that's cool is what if we want to change the size of our rectangle? What if I want it to be, let's say, 2 by 4 inches? If you want to change the size of your rectangle after you've drawn it, there's 2 ways to use the dimension constraint. You can just click on a line and say, okay, I want this to be 2 inches. Okay, and I want this one to be 4. Now you can click on this line, or you can click on the distance between these 2 lines. So we can say, I want the distance between these 2 lines to be 4 inches. So I clicked on this line, then I clicked on that line, and then we can come over here and say 4. So it'll stretch out our rectangle in the drawing. All right. So you'll also notice if I come over here and click on this line to add a dimension, and it says, hey, enter a dimension, and I type 3 inches, oh man, everything went red. It says that's a problem. It's saying you've got basically a contradiction in your drawing. If everything goes red like this, you've got a problem. And it says the over definition comes from these being perpendicular and the measurements that I have here. So it's not possible for this side and this side to be different sizes if these are perpendicular. Now, if I delete the constraints, if I say, all right, well, this isn't perpendicular anymore, then it might not have that problem. Like maybe I click here and press delete. I'll click here and press delete. Oh, okay, then it's not having a problem. But if I go back in like this, and then I add that perpendicular constraint back in, it's like, wait a minute, what is going on here? So it's over constrained, and so we have this little thing show over constrained. So I need to delete this constraint, and then it will go back to being normal. I could have also deleted the constraint that had this set as 2 inches, and then what's going to happen is this will pop up to become 3. So one of the 2 constraints wins. The one that I delete goes away, and the one that remains is the one that wins. So there we go. We have that. So it shows over constraint. If you want to, if you make a mistake, like let's say I click on something and delete it on accident. Oh no, I just deleted that line. You want it back? All you got to do is press Control-C or Command-Z or this undo button, and that line will pop back, and you get your work back. So if you accidentally delete something, it's one way to get your work back. What else do we have here? Selecting things in here. You'll notice that if I want to select this line, I'm going to show you 2 ways to select this top line. The first way is clicking and dragging up and to the left. If I click and drag up and to the left, you'll see that the box selected that top left line. Okay. If I click and drag down and to the right, it didn't. So the way how up and to the left is any line that is I think it's probably just up in general. Oh no, it's anything to the left. So anything selecting to the left, like this or like this, anything that the box touches will be selected. If you select down and to the right, if you select to the right, dragging to the right, anything that is contained, so I would have to completely contain that top line for it to be selected. So it allows us to be a little more, I guess, choosy when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty and selecting really small items in our drawing. I don't like that this is all wonky. I'm gonna make this viewable. I'm gonna make it parallel. I'm gonna add a parallel constraint to this line here. Did that work? Sweet. All right, so I just made those two things parallel. Great. Nice and orderly. All right, let me double check and make sure I've covered everything. That's basically it for today. I just want you now to draw your initials on an Onshape sketch and then send me a screenshot in Google Classroom. So if you're using a Mac, screenshot is Command Shift 3, or 3 for the whole screen, or 4 for a selection. So Command Shift 4 for the whole screen, I think. Maybe. And then for a Macintosh, let me double check that, make sure that's correct. Oh yeah. For a Macintosh, or sorry, for a PC, you're going to use the print screen button, which is on the top of your keyboard somewhere. It'll copy it to your clipboard, and then you'll have to open up an image program like Microsoft Paint, and then you can paste it into Paint and save that file and submit it. If you're on a Chromebook, I'm actually not sure. I think there's a button for a screenshot up on your top row. You should be able to punch that into Google, and you'll probably find something that'll teach you how to do that. I'm outsourcing you to somewhere else. But yeah, that's it. So draw your initials, and when I say draw your initials, I'm going to go ahead and use my teaching methods here. This is what I'm expecting. So like bubble letter initials, so you would say like, for me, they don't have to be perfect. If you want to try and make them nice and perpendicular and easy breezy, that's just fine. Let's see here. And then come over, so you just have to write your initials, take a screenshot and send it to me. I'm really not testing your CAD ability here, just did you get Onshape working, and do you understand the basics of how to use it. So you're going to do all 3 of your initials, practice drawing those, and then send me a screenshot. Thanks for watching.